This video is going to be analyzing the poem I Too Sing America by Langston Hughes. So again, whenever we're reading poetry, the first thing we always want to do is look at the author and see what we know about their life. And if we don't know anything, Google it. So I'm going to tell you a few things about Langston Hughes' life. So Langston Hughes, he was a Harlem Renaissance poet. So he moved up during the Great Migration of after the Civil War in the early 1920s or in the early 1900s, and he became a really influential poet in Harlem, really known in Harlem about the experience of Black Americans in the North and what they had experienced in the South. He wrote prolifically throughout his life. He also studied abroad, but that's the primary bit of information. So the next thing we always want to do is look at the year in which the text was written, 1945. What is going on in 1945? Oh yeah, it's the end of World War II. So we have people returning from World War II where they just fought Nazis against fascism and fought so that people could have their freedom. Now, Black Americans were also fighting for that, and yet they come home to a very different world because this is 1945, civil rights era hasn't started yet. Not a lot of those things are going on. So that is a context that we need to be cognizant of. Okay. So now we always read the poem and then box any words we don't know and look those up. So I'm going to read the poem. I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to the kitchen to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody'll dare say to me, eat in the kitchen then. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I, too, am America. Okay, so this poem was definitely written in response to Whitman's poem that we have already analyzed, I Hear America Singing, because he says, I, too, sing America, because one of the voices that we should notice were not shared in Whitman's poem was any minorities except for women. And even the women were very, very small section and only within the home sphere and in relation to men. So Hughes is saying there are other voices, and I also count as American. However, his experience is very different, and he's trying to point that out. He's going to talk about what he sings. So, by him saying, I too sing America, it's definitely a response to Whitman. Okay. I am the darker brother. They send me to the kitchen to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong. So what do we know is happening in this section? Well, so he is an African American, right? We know that things were segregated, right? And at this time. And so they would have sent anybody who was of color to the kitchen to eat. They would not be eating in the formal dining room with white people. They would be eating in the kitchen with the cook or with the other servants. So isolated, in the kitchen. However, if you notice, he says, I'm going to eat well and grow strong. So he's kind of saying, like, even though you do this, that's fine. I'll get mine. So he is kind of mocking or being fueled by what is happening by being forced to eat in the kitchen. Okay, so then he says, tomorrow I'll be at the table when company comes. So this is what we call in poetry a turn. A turn means that there is a change, a turn in the kind of events that are happening or the feeling that the poem is giving off, some major change. So here he's saying tomorrow, and not like in like literally tomorrow, but like in the future. I'll be at the table when company comes. He says, I will be an equal at the table. And nobody will dare. The fact that he chooses the word dare is very antagonistic, I guess I would say, but like very strong. Say, go eat in the kitchen then. Okay. Then it says, besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. So here he's expressing how they will see the beauty in all people and they will feel shame for what they have done to their darker brother. I, too, am America. So there we have a little figurative language, and it's basically the only figurative language that we have where we have repetition. Now, that's also strategic, right? Because we know from analyzing Walt Whitman's poem that he used tons of repetition. That was basically the only figurative language that he had in his. And this one, since it's a response to Whitman's piece, is employing the same structure, so it has repetition. Okay, so if you will recall, what we always do when we have a poem after we've analyzed the stanzas is that then we do our 3 S's, 2 T's, okay? So I'm going to put them up here. Speaker, setting, situation, tone, theme. So the speaker in this poem is obviously an African American living under segregated situations. So the setting would be probably the South or a segregated, because the North was segregated too. Just not as blatant, it was more passive. The situation is that they are thinking about the future and not being satisfied with the situation that they're in. Okay, so the tone, remember tone is always author's attitude towards something, towards the subject of the poem. So what is his attitude about this disparity in his treatment? How is he feeling about it? Most people would probably say, oh, he feels anger. But I don't know that that's what the author, is showing here. He says things like, I laugh, and I eat well, and I grow strong. And he says, tomorrow, and I'm beautiful, they'll feel ashamed. I, too, am America. So I don't really feel like it's anger or frustration. Those seem too negative. Here, instead, I kind of feel like it's not neutral because I don't think that they're content, right, with the situation that they're in. Instead, I would say that it's probably like critical or reproachful. You could even consider something like questioning or troubling the situation. But I think critical and reproachful are really good choices. Why, thank you, Ms. Upstrom. You're welcome, Ms. Upstrom. Okay, so theme. What is his message about this experience? I think that he's trying to give people who are also living this experience some sort of look towards the future instead of just sitting in the now. So I would say that the mistreated will rise up, or maybe, sorry, my camera turned on. Or maybe, so the mistreated will rise up, or maybe there are Americans not being recognized, since you did say I too am America. Okay, so something like that. Okay, so that would be the 3 S's and 2 T's for this poem. Now, both of these poems are talking about the Americas that these 2 authors lived in. So Langston Hughes and Whitman are both telling about the America that they see. Now, we now would have a different perspective, right? The America that we know or that we see is different than this, which we'll talk about more later.